How does an army of 5,000 elite soldiers just disappear? In the year of 180 AD, a stone inscription was carved in the fortress of York. It was the last confirmed official record of Legion 9 Hispana, Rome's legendary 9th Legion. Shortly after, they marched north into the mist of Scotland and vanished. So thoroughly, it left behind a silence louder than any battle. No triumph, no official obituary, no record of their slaughter. For nearly 2,000 years, the fate of the 9th Legion has been history's ultimate missing person case. Just absence, but there are moments in archaeology when the ground doesn't just give up an artifact. It gives up a secret. Because right now, in 2025, unverified reports are leaking out in the Scottish Highlands. A cut of earth has been peeled back, revealing a dark stain in the soil of discovery so dramatic. It could finally rewrite the 9th Legion's final chapter. If the reports are accurate, if the site is what early claims suggest, and if it can survive the slow and glamorous process of scientific verification, today we aren't just telling ghost stories, we are following the archaeological evidence as far as it actually goes, and then we step into the shadows where the records end.
Rome was a bureaucracy with armor. It counted people. It counted grain. It counted units, especially legions. So when the 9th Legion disappears from the administrative world, the lists, the inscriptions, the routine paperwork, it isn't just unusual, it's an alarm bell. The 9th was not a minor auxiliary cohort. It was a veteran formation with deep roots, linked by tradition to the late Republic and Rome's transformation. Over generations, it served where the empire demanded force, frontier control, rebellion suppression, and rapid campaigns. Yet sometime in the early 2nd century, roughly between 1117 and 120 CE, the 9th stops appearing where it should. Historians have argued about this gap for centuries, not because Rome never lost battles, but because Rome almost never allowed a legion to vanish without a trace. The 9th's last widely accepted anchor point is Eboracum, modern-day York, a key military hub in Roman Britain. This wasn't the edge of the world to Rome. It was a platform, stone walls, storehouses, command structures, everything needed to project power north. But beyond the Roman line was different terrain entirely. The northern territories, often grouped under names like Caledonia, were difficult ground forests, bogs, steep passes, and tribal networks that resisted Roman legibility. On roads, Roman patrols moved fast. In terrain like this, roads end, and organized warfare breaks down into ambush, attrition, disappearance. Somewhere beyond Eboracum, the historical trail goes cold. No surviving dispatch says, the 9th marched north on this date. No surviving report says, the 9th returned. That silence leaves space, dangerous space, for theories. Over time, two broad explanations competed. Theory 1. The Legion was destroyed in the Middle East, possibly during major conflicts like the Bar Kokhba revolt in Judea 132 to 135, Common Era, or later wars on Rome's eastern frontier. These ideas have always had one advantage. Rome fought massive costly wars there. But if the 9th died far from Britain, why does its name fade from British records first? And why is there no clear epigraphic trail showing the unit's redeployment? Theory 2. The Legion was lost in Britain, absorbed into the chaos of northern campaigning, perhaps annihilated in an ambush, perhaps broken down and redistributed. This theory feels geographically honest. The 9th's last confirmed presence is on the island, and shortly after, Roman policy changes. In the 20s, Emperor Hadrian commissions a wall, not an invasion route, but a hard border. A line signaling containment, not expansion. That doesn't prove the 9th was destroyed, but it suggests Rome had learned something north of York. Something expensive. The mystery has also entered popular imagination, most famously through Rosemary Sutcliffe's 1954 novel, The Eagle of the 9th, and its film adaptations. These works dramatize a British annihilation. They're fiction, but they've shaped how millions first encountered the question. What we're examining tonight is what the actual evidence can support. Here's where the mystery sharpens. Rome didn't just stop mentioning the 9th. In some contexts, it looks like the ninth is missing where it should be present, on inscriptions, in lists, in the kind of public-facing record that normally celebrated military service. That has led some scholars to argue the legion may have suffered something worse than defeat, official disgrace. The Roman world had a concept infamous for individuals of being condemned in memory, names removed, honors stripped, records altered. Applying that idea to an entire legion is controversial, but the question remains: what could force Rome to treat a legion not as fallen soldiers, but as a problem to be managed? Defeat alone usually wasn't enough. Disloyalty might be, mutiny might be, a political liability at the wrong moment, during the transition from Trajan to Hadrian, might be, and that brings us to 2025, because in 2025, a claim surfaced that if verified, could give the ninth a physical ending, not just a documentary one. We should be clear about what is and isn't established. In early 2025, reports began circulating in archaeological and enthusiast communities about a remote sensing project in Scotland. According to these accounts, none yet peer-reviewed or formally published, a team conducting LiDAR and spectral mapping detected anomalies in a peatland region. Geometric shapes too regular to be natural. Rectangular boundaries, ditch-like signatures, the kind that in other contexts have matched Roman temporary camps. And the scale, if the measurements reported are accurate, would be consistent with a large formation, a legion-sized presence. The problem is not that Roman camps exist in Britain. Dozens are documented. The problem is what would have to be true for this one to matter. It would need secure dating, not just it looks Roman, but Roman in the right window. It would need diagnostic material culture artifacts tied to Roman military use, and ideally to a specific unit. And it would need transparent publication, peer review, context, chain of custody. As of this recording, none of that verification has occurred publicly. What exists are preliminary claims, circulated through informal channels, generating significant attention before formal scrutiny. That's not inherently suspicious. Archaeology often works this way. Field hints precede published conclusions by years, but it means we're examining a potential development, not a confirmed one. Until formal publication, it's not a solved mystery, it's a lead. But leads are how cold cases crack open. Let's say an excavation confirms a Roman camp. What then? A camp alone doesn't mean annihilation. Roman forces built camps constantly, sometimes for a single night. To argue the ninth died there, investigators would need a pattern of evidence consistent with catastrophe. Concentrations of weapon fragments, trauma patterns on human remains, signs of disorder, consistent with a rout rather than organized withdrawal, and crucially, identifiers, inscriptions, stamped equipment, anything linking the site to a specific legion. Even then, archaeology rarely delivers cinematic certainty. A battlefield doesn't keep a clean narrative. Bogs move bones, soil chemistry eats metal, later settlement disturbs layers, and looting can rewrite a site before scientists ever arrive. That's why extraordinary claims, mass execution pits, recovered standards, translated inscriptions, require extraordinary documentation. Because once a story like that enters public imagination, it becomes difficult to correct. And the Ninth Legion has always attracted stories. So the question isn't dramatic, the question is, can it survive scrutiny? What follows is speculation, clearly labeled as such. It's one possible framework for interpreting the Ninth's disappearance, not established fact. Assume for a moment the most conservative version of events. A major Roman unit is destroyed in northern Britain. The loss is humiliating. Survivors are few or politically inconvenient. Rome chooses to minimize it. That alone could explain a certain kind of quiet. Empires curate their image, but the deeper suspicion, the one that keeps returning in scholarly discussion, is that the Ninth wasn't merely lost, that its disappearance aligned too neatly with a shifting imperial agenda. Hadrian consolidates, borders harden, Britain becomes a province to hold, not a frontier to push, and if the Ninth had become a liability, militarily or politically, then sending it into a high-risk theater could serve multiple objectives at once. Remove a threat, punish dissent, and turn defeat into an unspoken correction. This is not proven. The evidence is circumstantial at best, and many historians would reject this reading as over-interpretive. But it is a logic that fits how empires, ancient and modern, sometimes behave when power transitions are unstable. Here's what we can honestly say. The 9th Legion was present in Roman Britain in the early 2nd century. After that, its documentary footprint collapses. Theories about its fate remain disputed because the evidence is incomplete. And now in 2025, the possibility of a major Scottish site, potentially Roman, potentially tied to a catastrophic event, has reignited the question. But archaeology is slow. Verification is slower, and history doesn't change because a headline says it did. History changes when data holds. So if the 9th is truly waiting beneath the peat, if a camp becomes a battlefield, and a battlefield becomes a grave, then the next phase won't be a legend. It will be paperwork, site reports, stratigraphy, radiocarbon, osteology, epigraphy, the unglamorous machinery of proof. Because if Rome erased the 9th, it did it with administration and silence. And the only way to answer that is with evidence that can't be erased.
If more data from this 2025 site is formally published, dates, artifact catalogs, peer-reviewed analysis, it could become the first material anchor strong enough to narrow the 9th's fate. Until then, the 9th Legion remains what it has always been, a missing page in the story of an empire that built monuments to remember, and may have worked just as hard to make one legion disappear. If you want to follow up this story as it develops and get notified when verification catches up to the claims, subscribing is the simplest way to stay informed.